Hello, everyone. Happy Friday or happy Saturday to some of you. Welcome to the weekly show of What is School For? My name is AI. I'm the I'm the host of this weekly live streaming show. You can also listen to us on the traditional audio-only podcast, iTunes, Spotify, and all the other places. So on this show, I interview leading educators, entrepreneurs, teachers, students, parents, business leaders, and to come here to discuss, debate, and disrupt education. The goal is to future-proof the next generation. And today we have a next generation representative on the show, Lily Fishman, and we are going to have a very interesting discussion with her and to learn more about her journey of learning outside the classroom. So Lily is a high school student currently, and she attends an online school. Very interesting. We're going to learn more about her educational experience. And she's also an organizer of Model UN online conference, which is pretty cool. And we're going to learn more about that from her. And we're also going to have a discussion between learning within the classroom and learning outside the classroom. What are the differences and what are some skills that we can gain from learning outside the classroom? For those of you who are following me for quite some time, I classroom without walls. We believe the best education happens outside the classroom. So I'm excited to learn more about Lily's journey and her experience of learning outside the classroom. We're also going to learn more about her generation, how they feel about schooling in general, and so on and so forth. And we are live on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Periscope, on YouTube, on Twitch. And so if you are live with us right now, let me know in the comment section where you are joining us live from, social media wise and geographically speaking. I'm really, really happy to see you. And Lily, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. Honored. I on this show, I interviewed quite a few students already. I literally before our interview today, I asked her, "Are you a school dropout?" Because I interviewed so many dropouts on my show, I don't even remember. But she is still a student. So tell us more about your educational journey. And as I mentioned earlier, right now you attend an online school. Have you always been attending this online school? And what, if not, what inspired you to make the change?
Yeah, so I actually attended public school through the end of my sophomore year. I'm a junior right now. I just started my junior year at my online school, which is called Laurel Springs. But I had never really thought about leaving the public education system. But I was really struggling when I moved into high school. I found out later I had an undiagnosed learning disability, but the public school system had never picked up on that. Because I've always been a pretty good student, and they just never knew. And once we did find out, they weren't really willing to cater to that because the current system just really isn't able to cater to the individualized needs of students in the general education classroom. So I made the decision that switching to a different model of education would be a lot better for me. And so far it has been. My mental health has improved, my grades have improved, and I'm generally a lot happier. So I'm really liking it.
I love it. And thank you for being so vulnerable to share this with us. And I want to unpack this a little bit. So before you made the switch, what are some specific challenges that you were trying to cope with, if you don't mind sharing with us?
Yeah, so I had very underdeveloped executive functioning skills. I have an eidetic memory, so my memory is in the 99th percentile, which means all through elementary school, I never had to study for anything. And then I went to high school and everything was moving at a lot faster pace. And I was realizing I don't know how to study. And I was trying to communicate that to my teachers that I don't have the skill set to know how to study for a test. And they were telling me, oh, you can't not know how to study. Everyone knows how to study. Like, you can't just not know. And they're telling me that it's impossible, that I can't be doing this. And I never developed that skill. And there was really no recognition of that from any of the staff members at my public school that I could have just missed out on developing executive functioning skills, because I had all these compensative strategies, but I never actually was able to learn the skill itself. So that was a really big thing for me. I'd say that was kind of my main issue. And then I had a really hard time focusing, and I was asking for like different strategies that I could use. And they were telling me, oh, just pay attention. It's like, I can't just pay attention. I had a teacher tell me that she wasn't a doctor, but if I exercise, my ADHD might go away. And I said, it doesn't work like that. I had a teacher tell me that I don't have ADHD. And I said, no, I have a medical diagnosis of this, which you have access to. I do have it. I had a teacher tell me that I can't take mental health days because if I'm taking mental health days, I'm not focusing on school, and school is your priority. And I'm like, that's really excellent, except I have a diagnosed mental health disorder. I have OCD. So sometimes I need a minute. And in that instance, school is not my priority. My mental health is my priority. So there was a lot of issues at public school.
I mean, wow, like I share, many of you probably know my story. I left my teaching position after like almost 2 decades in higher education. And it feels so sad, right? Like teachers, I think they are so good at labeling students, right? And they're also very good at shutting you, like just shut you down, right? Like instead of, hey, you know how to study, instead of figuring this out, hey, how can we figure this out and work with you or your condition to see how you can learn in your own way. And that is sad. So like after you made the switch, what are some like differences with this new model that has made learning a lot easier for you?
So it's a lot more flexible. I set my own hours, which means I can get a full night's sleep, which is not something I was getting when I was in public school, waking up before the sun was up, which has been so beneficial for my physical and my mental health. I get severe chronic migraines. And so being able to get an adequate amount of sleep has been very, very helpful for me. And then I get to move at my own pace. So if I'm like really understanding concepts, I don't need to waste time going over it 8 different times. Like I can just move through it, which is really good for my ADHD because if something I'm repeating too much, it gets really tedious for me and I have trouble focusing on it. So I can just move through that stuff really fast. And definitely the teachers have been a lot more supportive. I feel like even though I don't see my teachers every day because we're using an asynchronous learning model, I still feel like I'm getting more individualized attention than I got in public school because I have teachers email me and they'll say like, hey, what are you working on this week? Do you need any help? And the teachers in public school really don't care too much. Like it wasn't very attentive. And I saw them every day in their classroom and I wasn't getting that type of attention.
Feeling invisible, right? I mean, you are not the first student who are sharing this with me. When I was a student, I felt invisible for so many years. I mean, like, how large were your classes? Do you remember public school?
Oh no, I think I froze.
Yeah, no worries. It happens with online, with social media. So did you hear my question? I was asking how large were your classes?
Okay, so in public school, my classes, the max was 25. I had classes as small as 14 because I took honors French and not a lot of kids take French. So my honors French class was like 14 kids, but then my history class was like 25 kids. Which really is not that large. I mean, I have friends that tell me that their classes are like 40 kids. So comparatively, it's not that large. But when it's 25 kids in a classroom and like half of them need special attention and there's one teacher and we're going at the honors level, so everything's moving really fast and they have certain expectations of us, it's really not enough.
Oh, yeah, I so agree. So here's a great comment from Dan saying that like he's pretty much talking about test taking, right? Like when you are later like doing job interviews, like how important is test taking as a critical skill is actually not that important. So
Yeah.
I really agree. I mean, like I have been working for quite a few decades, and I never did I actually use my skill as a test taker to succeed in doing what I do. Definitely not for launching a company. Sometimes you have to be better at breaking the norms, not following orders in order to be good at doing what you do. So I love that. So you are attending an online school, right? So I homeschool my own children. And a very common question people ask is, oh, wow, online school. How about the social aspect, right? So I want to ask you the same question. What do you think about the social aspect? Do you feel like isolated? Do you have enough social interactions with your peers and professionals? So can you share that with us?
Yeah, so there's definitely a very strong social community at my school. My school has its own private social network, actually, just for the students at our school, which is so cool because I get to connect with people from all over the world that go to my school. So we already have that in common, and I get to meet so many people. We have Instagram group chats for people at my school, and we get to talk. There's a lot of clubs. I'm in 4 clubs right now, so I get to see people there. And then every Friday, we have Friday hangouts. So it's 1 hour, and it's just high school students. Other grades have their own hangouts, but we do 9 through 12, and we all get to talk and hang out. And it's really, really nice for getting to know people. So definitely I wouldn't say that I feel socially isolated. I feel like I know more people now because it's not just I know like a couple people that live in my very small town. I know people from all over the world and all over the country. So it's definitely really cool.
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. And do you actually socialize with people only of your same age or like different ages and from different countries, as this is an online school? So what's the demographic?
So definitely, I'd say when I was in public school, I was really only talking to people who were in my grade for the most part. But because of the online setting, I am talking to people from all different ages, mostly high schoolers, because at a certain point, I don't want to talk to kids that much younger than me, since I'm an upperclassman. But like all high school ages, like I've been talking to people, and then all different countries, like
Wow.
mostly it's US based, but I'm talking to people all over the world, which is really, really cool.
Do you find that that is helping you in terms of, life skills and communication skills?
Yeah. I mean, I see this too in my Model UN that I'm meeting people from all over the world. I'd say more so in Model UN because that's significantly less US based. But I'm learning so much about different cultures. And there is an aspect of culture shock at first where I'm like, whoa, like that's how you do that there? Like my friends in Europe who are like, yeah, I went to the pub last night. And I'm like, you're 17. And there's that culture shock where I'm like, that's kind of not what I'm used to. But like I am learning about other cultures and other people do stuff differently. And it's so, so important that especially teenagers are able to learn that so that moving forward in life, we're not so close-minded. Like it's so important to be meeting people from other cultures.
I love it. It reminds me of my interview with Duncan Wardle. If you guys haven't watched that, I should definitely check it out. Duncan is the former VP of innovation at Disney, and he shared something with us that I think is so profound, but so simple. He said, "Diversity is innovation." And I was like, yeah, that is so true, right? So when you have a diverse group of people in terms of their educational background, the skin color, and you are actually exposed to different ways of thinking that is otherwise very hard to have. So I love that. Yeah. And we have some really interesting comments from our live audience. And so earlier we were talking about, taking exams. And so here is a really great comment from Mark, and thank you for joining us live. And he said that, testing is part of certification and licensing, which is really important for people who need to become lawyers and certified teachers, attorneys, all those things. So what do you think about this, Lily? And I want to ask you now, you have gained more life skills because you are doing this Model UN, as we're going to discuss in a few minutes. Do you feel like doing that has improved your ability to study and maybe even prepare for the exams, as opposed to before when you were only in the classroom and trying so hard to prepare for those exams? What do you think?
Yeah, I would say that doing stuff outside of the classroom has definitely improved my ability to do stuff inside of the classroom, because when you're inside the classroom all the time, like there's only so much you can do before you feel like banging your head on the wall. Like when you're getting diverse experiences, then you're able to apply what you're learning in other settings to what you're doing in the classroom, and you're getting out of the classroom, which makes it easier to do stuff in the classroom, because it's not fun to be in the classroom all the time. But when you're getting out, you're able to I guess focus in better when you are inside of the classroom.
Yeah, totally, I agree. And just reflecting on my experience, I used to be a A+ gamer in terms of taking exams, but I didn't really know how to implement. But now, after I became a practitioner, and I'm not only am I better at taking the traditional exams, but actually I understand what the questions I was being asked. So I also think that is the trend. We discussed this quite a few episodes ago, and saying that Google is launching their own career certifications. And yesterday I was on Adobe Education Live, and there was a big study came out. If those of you are interested, I can ask me for the link. It is called Deciding Factor. So it's a huge study. They study like students. So in that study, and it is very compelling, the data have shown that there is less and less emphasis on traditional certifications and the scores, and more emphasis on like soft skills, human skills, creativity, creative problem solving. So I hope this will be changing in the near future, right? On top of the certifications that you have. But what matters even more than that is like hands-on learning, hands-on projects, real life, implications and experiences, not just like only looking at the certificate. That's kind of my hope and my it's a great discussion, great question. Yeah. So I want to ask you, so earlier talking about studies, and earlier this year, there was a big national study came out. They surveyed almost 22,000 high school students. Given that you are a high schooler, I really want to ask you this question. So almost 22,000 US high school students. So they ask the students how you are feeling about school, the school that you are attending. So almost 70% of students feel negative about the schools they are attending. So three main emotions, and I have the numbers here. So number one is most of them feel stressed. That is almost 80%. The second strongest emotion is they feel bored, and that is almost 70%. And the third strongest emotion is that they feel tired, and that is almost 60%. So I want to ask you, what do you think about those numbers? Do you think those numbers are accurate? And then I have some follow-up questions. So first, share with us, what do you think about the numbers? Are they like, wow, shocker? Or do you feel like they're really accurate or like off the chart?
I'm surprised it's not higher, based on what I know. I mean, everyone is stressed. I don't think I know anyone who's not stressed about school and tired. If you're going to a public school, you're probably waking up before the sun's up, and you're staying up until 1 or 2 a.m. to get homework done. So I think everyone's tired. Like you're getting almost no sleep, which is not sustainable, because teenagers need more than like 4 hours of sleep. But
That's true. And how does that, feeling tired, feeling stressed, you were talking about mental health. So how do all of those factors affect your like overall well-being and performance at schools? Can you share that with us?
Yeah, I mean, definitely that takes away from our ability to perform well in school. I mean, if you're falling asleep in class, you're not retaining information and you're not able to effectively sit down and take a test. I mean, I've taken tests before 8 a.m. and I'm falling asleep. And you can't do well on a test if it's an ungodly hour. Like no one can do that. So definitely it takes away from our ability to perform in school, and that takes away from our mental health. And a lot of teenagers are struggling with mental health issues right now. So and I feel like that is a product of the school system.
Oh, it's so true, and again, my personal story, I'm a first generation immigrant to the United States. I grew up in China. So the learning environment that you just described for us was my entire K-12 educational experience in China. That's why I left China to pursue a different education model, because it's not sustainable. I hated learning on so many levels, and I was not emotionally and physically healthy. Yeah. So what do students do about it? Like I don't really get to talk to high schoolers a lot. So you have all the stress, you're feeling stressed, burnout, now interest in this and that, like mental health issues. So what are some alternatives? Like what do you do? Just like don't do anything, or if those people who do something about it, what do they do? I'm curious.
You'll see a small group of people will end up in therapy if they have a family that believes in that and is accepting and understanding of that, which is what I do. I've definitely seen a lot of teenagers abuse substances because of the stress that they're under. I know at the public school that I attended, there was a lot of marijuana usage and there was a lot of vaping. And I live in Massachusetts, so it's pretty easy to get. So definitely a lot of substance abuse, alcohol as well. And a lot of kids won't do anything, and they'll just break under all the stress. I mean, I've seen people have like emotional breakdowns daily at school. Everyone just breaks down, starts crying, and their physical health will suffer. They'll get sick. And it's really not sustainable, like you said.
It's so sad that this is kind of most students' default state of being, right? That is the default. So sad, so sad. But thanks for sharing. Yeah. So we have some really great comments here. So here's one, which is a great question. I want to transition to what you do at Modern UN. So Pooja asked you, and join us live from India. I don't even know what time is it for you. So thank you so much for being here live with us. What is your ambition or your life vision, and how did you figure it out? And I think this is a great question. And before we answer that question, I would love to have you share with us. So since the pandemic, right, or correct me if I'm wrong, maybe before, that you have been actively organizing this Model UN. So share with us, what is Model UN for those people who don't know what it is, and also what inspired you to get involved in this really incredible movement?
Yeah. So Model United Nations is a simulation of the United Nations for high school students. College students do it as well, and sometimes middle school in certain schools. And basically, we represent a country or a person, and we represent their position in a given committee on a given topic, which sounds very vague. But an example would be if you were in a General Assembly committee on climate change and you were representing the United States, maybe you would be opposing climate change action in this current administration, and you would be saying that you want to see more scientific basis for any actions that we want to take. So you're going to request that a study be done, and you're going to write a resolution to encourage more research into climate change. It's very, very fun. It doesn't sound super fun.
I can tell, like when you were talking about school, you're like, but now you're like smiling. You're like, I can feel an energy shift. Yeah. So sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah. I mean, geopolitics, that's where it's at. That's the fun stuff. So I started Model UN my freshman year. That's the earliest it's offered at the school I was in. And I had been doing it for almost 2 years when the pandemic hit. And when the pandemic hit, no one was able to go to Model UN conferences anymore. And I actually, this is so funny. I had a Model UN memes Instagram account page, which I started as a joke, for the record. I didn't wake up and think like, this is something I'm going to do seriously. I started as a joke. But a lot of people started following it. So I started posting to the Instagram story, like, has your Model UN been canceled because of the pandemic? Like, are you still able to do Model UN? And overwhelmingly across the globe, people were telling me that their Model UN was canceled. There weren't any other options for them. And I was like, that's awful, because that's such an important thing to me, to be able to do Model UN. So what I did was I started a virtual conference, and I had my first iteration on March 28th, and I organized it almost entirely on Instagram, which didn't go super well. There were a lot of issues with that because I didn't really know what I was doing. But I had 100 people sign up. I didn't have 100 people show up, but I did have 100 people sign up. And I've run 4 other conferences since then, and I'm planning my 6th conference for October 24th.
Wow, that's really incredible. So like, wow, you must be, I'm proud of you. I want to learn more. So share more details with us. And you say a conference. So what happens at this conference, what the conference is about? So can you give us an example? This sounds really fascinating. Also share with us the demographics of the people who are actually attending those online conferences.
Yeah. So at my conference, I do have a large US base. But Model UN is, I didn't know this before I started doing it virtually, but apparently very, very popular in northern India. So I have a very large base of delegates from India. I mean, all across the world, we have delegates from 6 continents, not Antarctica, although I have a friend who's working on that, apparently. I don't know all the details, though. So we have delegates from all over the world. A lot of our delegates are English second language, which is really interesting to me. I didn't realize, but in other countries where English is not the primary language, they do Model UN in English sometimes. So I have lots of delegates come to practice their debating skills in English because they're not totally used to that. So at a conference, you're assigned a position in a committee. So you debate the topic of the committee, and you work to write a resolution to come to a solution on the issue being discussed. And it's very, very fun. I enjoy it so much because you're not representing yourself, you're representing someone else, which is really fun. If you're like a dictatorship and then you get to play the bad guy, that's what I really like to do. Like, I like to be the DPRK because then I can kind of antagonize everyone. But a lot of people don't like to do that. So, like, you know, if you're an EU country, you're going to be aligning with other EU countries to write a resolution together. So it's definitely a really cool experience, especially to be able to do it with people from all over the world, because that's not really something that you get when you're not doing Model UN virtually, because we do have international conferences, but the international conferences that I've been to, it's like a couple people from Europe, a couple people from Mexico, and a couple people from Canada. But it's almost entirely US based.
That's right.
And when you go to a virtual conference, it's almost entirely not US based. Like, there's more people from outside of the US, and that is such a unique opportunity because you can't really get that if you're not doing it virtually.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. So this is definitely, you know, I love how you think, right? With COVID and everything's online, people are like, this is bad, that is bad. I love how this is actually a great opportunity for you to kind of globalize this Model UN experience. I love it. So can you share with us what are some differences between learning within the classroom, right? Think about the traditional class that you're taking online or even at the public school versus learning, like doing this model UN, people from different countries, understanding differences. So what are some big differences that you can share with us?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that I've learned from doing Model UN. And it really does not compare to being in a classroom. I mean, there's so much that I've learned about other cultures, and I've met so many different people. I've learned a lot about being assertive and being able to assert myself. There's a lot of sexism in Model UN, and here I am as a very not physically imposing woman, and I'm running my own conference. So I've learned how to assert myself. I've had to deal with a lot of conflicts, and that's not something that you really learn in school. Like, they don't teach you conflict resolution, but I've had to mediate a lot of that. I've had to fire people, and nothing in school prepared me for that. Like, that's a skill that I didn't really expect I'd ever have to learn. But I did, and firing people isn't good. I mean, in the context that it was warranted, but it's a life skill that I was able to learn from doing Model UN, to be able to say no to people and to be able to assert myself. And that's really not something that I got in a classroom. So definitely it's been really amazing. And like, professional correspondences, they don't teach you that. But here I am emailing the actual UN, because I was able to get an endorsement from them. I got a letter from Antonio Guterres, who's the Secretary General of the actual UN. So I had to email the UN, and nothing at school prepares you for that. They don't teach you how to write a professional email. So I had to get my dad to help me. So definitely there's a lot that I've learned from Model UN that I would not have been able to learn in a traditional school setting.
I love it. That's why we say, the best education happens outside the classroom. And the points that you mentioned, like, my students come to me, they literally don't know, how do I send an email, like a professional email? How do I even connect with strangers on LinkedIn? So in my, like, just listening to your story, I'm thinking you are developing so many important skills that you will carry with you for the rest of your life. So a few days ago, I'm a big fan of Seth Godin. I don't know if you know him, but Google him. He's amazing. So he is really big on, disrupting the old educational model. Even though he's an amazing marketer, he's really passionate about education. He said that education should not prepare students to practice how to take exams, but instead, there are two important skills that we need to prepare our students. Number one, how to lead. And number two, how to do problem solving, which is exactly, as I'm listening to your story, that's exactly what you are learning, right? Problem solving and how to lead, right? As a woman, I'm still learning how to be more assertive. And I wish I started on this journey earlier, but now you are learning this. That makes me feel like really, really happy. Yeah. That's incredible. So do you have lots of like students, like, how do you like bring all the people together and share that with us? Like, how do you lead them?
So almost everyone finds us through Instagram. Instagram is such a powerful tool to be able to connect to people, which a lot of people don't listen to coming from a teenager, but it really is. So people find me on Instagram, or they'll find my website or hear from a friend, and so they'll sign up for my conference. I have someone that handles that for me. I hire people to deal with delegate registration because I'm really busy. So my friend Dylan, he will assign everyone a committee and he'll email them. And then everyone comes together on Zoom. I have 4 Zoom Pro accounts, which unfortunately I have to pay for myself because Zoom doesn't give out free accounts. But so everyone comes together on Zoom, and there's different Zoom meetings for different committees. And we encourage everyone to turn on their cameras so that we can see all their wonderful faces, because it's a lot it's a lot easier to debate and to be able to make a personal connection and work with someone if you can see their face. So we encourage everyone to turn on their cameras. Not everyone does, but that's okay. So yeah, everyone gets to get together on a meeting, and a lot of people will exchange contact information and stay in touch afterwards. Some of my very best Model UN friends, I met them because I hired them to staff for me, or they were at a conference that I ran, and now I talk to them all the time. So it's really amazing.
I love it. I love it. And I'm going to share your website so everyone can take a look. Let me share my screen. So this is the one, right?
Yes.
And also, yeah, so those are the Zoom meetings, right? And those are the countries of the people who have.
Some of the countries. I've kind of lost count.
That's incredible.
Thank you.
Like, how many students can have such an experience, right?
Yeah.
Was it hard or easy for you when you first, really practicing cross-cultural communication?
It was definitely really hard for me at first, especially since a lot of terminology will vary regionally. So there's a lot of MUN terms that they'll use differently in other parts of the world, and people will say stuff to me, and I didn't know what it meant at first. At this point, I can confidently say that I understand most of the terminology from other regions, and I'm able to translate in my head. But I was definitely very, very confused for a while. And there's some things like I had a conference that happened over Ramadan, and we had to give delegates exemptions to miss part of committee sessions. So that was definitely something different for me because I do know Muslim people, but I live in a very, very, very Catholic area, 97% or something like that. So that was not something that I was totally used to, having to think about that because I didn't realize that we scheduled over Ramadan. So definitely that. And people talk differently, in a business setting, which sounds kind of weird, but a lot of people will address an email like "Dear Sir / Ma'am," and that's not something that I'm used to, because if I address an email, let's say "To whom it may concern" or something like that, and I'll get Instagram DMs that say "Dear Sir / Ma'am." And that was kind of weird to me. And I do get DMs that just say "Hello, sir." And that's a patriarchy issue because they assume I'm a man. But sometimes they'll say "Sir / Ma'am." And that was definitely kind of an adjustment for me to think oh, they talk differently in a business setting than we do. It's like a cultural thing. So definitely there's a lot of little nuances that I had to adjust to.
Well, I love it. I just love listening to you talk, even how critical you are, in terms of seeing those issues through with your penetrating eyes. I love it. Yeah, but they are very formal. I remember I gave a talk to a group of students and teachers in Oman. And after my talk, they gave me a big certification. There was a ceremony. I was like, wow, I have been doing so many talks online. I don't ever get a certification. I was like, wow, just so formal. So it's very, very interesting. And those skills and the knowledge will stay with you. So really interesting. Yeah. So what is do you guys have a theme for the upcoming Model UN conference?
Yeah, so we have 3 committees that we're doing, and they each have a different topic. So we're doing a continuous crisis committee, and it's a historical committee on the 1990 invasion of Kuwait. We're doing a United States Senate on campaign ethics and voting reform, which is sure to be interesting given the current political climate. And we're doing a UN SOCHM on access to education, equitable access to education for persons with disabilities. So I'm very excited.
So prior to every meeting, do you have to do lots of research to prepare for the meeting?
Delegates do have to do a lot of research. Not as much for staff, honestly. I hire someone to write delegate background guides to start them on their research. So my USG of academics will write background guides, and then we send those to the staff as well so that they can read up on their committees beforehand. And of course, we do encourage them to do outside research. The delegates do have to do the most, though, because not only do they have to research the topic in general, they have to research their country's stance on the topic.
Yeah, so cool. Is this your team or?
This is my secretariat team.
Incredible. I love it. You know how like all of you are so young and doing something really meaningful. Have you all met in person or only connected through online, social media, Instagram?
Yeah, I've actually not met any of them in person.
Wow.
Unfortunately, although I'd love to. A couple of them live pretty close to me and we're trying to meet, but most of them live very far away.
That's so incredible, right? Like I bet you are looking at technology very differently because I'm so tired of all the negative talks on social media. This is so bad, that is so bad.
Yeah.
I'm an advocate of using social media for good. Before we went live, I shared with you, and now I can share with everyone that my friends and I were actually organizing a global 24-hour classroom event. A 24-hour, we have students and teachers from 33 countries. Like some countries, I literally had to look on the app, not the app, the map, like where are they from? It is so fascinating. Without social media, there was no way that we could discover those people. So use social media for good. And this is another reason I love your story so much, like building an online team. This is like a startup company.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it is.
So where do you see yourself? Like this team, you own this UN model conference. Where do you see yourself in a few years? Like any big plans, and share with us.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't know what the future holds. I'm definitely going to keep organizing conferences while I'm in high school, and I hope to do it while I'm in college. I imagine that my team will not stay once they're in college. Everyone on my team is really great, and I think that they're going to do amazing things. So I'm sure that they're going to be very, very busy. But I hope to expand, and I hope to be able to reach more delegates, especially internationally. I wanna expand into more countries. I'm already in a lot, but I think it's so important to be able to connect people from different countries.
Absolutely.
So I'd love to expand further. I'd love to be less US based, actually. We do have a large base in the US, which is excellent. But a big part of why I do this is to be able to meet people that don't live near me. So I'd really like to expand into more countries.
I love it. I love it. I love it at so many levels. I love your global perspective. And many of the students I worked with, they don't even know there are different time zones in the United States, right? And I just love how broadened your perspective is. And so really, really fascinating. Do you think you will go to college?
Yeah, I am planning on going to college. I want to study humanities, and then hopefully I'll go into public policy. And part of that is because of my experience in Model UN, that's something I want to pursue.
Yeah, I love it how like this thing planted a seed, you know, like most students I work with, and they don't really know what they want to do in life. And it seems like you have discovered or uncovered that calling. And I think that makes me feel really good, proud of you. And also I think that has also made your life a lot easier. You're not feeling like so lost. I want to share with you, and has been a fascinating conversation. So one of my favorite quotes is about education is from Mark Twain. And he said that I have never let schooling interfere with my education. I was like, wow, I wish I could say something that profound. So what do you think about this statement? Do you agree or disagree?
Definitely I agree with that, because they teach you stuff in school, but the real learning happens outside of school, because they can teach me like trigonometry, but there's no time in my life where I will ever need to use that. So the real stuff that I'm learning is how to interact with people and how to organize and how to lead. And that's the real education that is going to help me moving forward.
Wow, that's amazing. So if you can summarize for us, what does education mean to you? When you are trying to, when you are trying to imagine, wow, I'm having a good educational experience, like what does education mean to you?
Yeah, I think that education is not just learning facts and numbers. It's also learning life skills and learning how to be a leader and learning how to interact with people from different cultures and learning about different types of people, because numbers and facts will only get you so far, because you can be very, very intelligent, but you need to have those interpersonal skills and you need to understand the nuances of society and how to interact with people. So I'd say education is really, it's kind of character development to be able to grow into a better version of yourself.
Wow, I love that. I love that. I think that, education is a character development to become someone better than yourself. Wow, that is as profound as the Mark Twain quote. I love it. I love it. So kind of follow up on this conversation. We're just wrapping this up here. So if you had, I don't know if this question is too much for you to answer, but just from your perspective and experience so far, so if you had the budget and resources and the time to design a school, what and how will that school look like to you? And kind of ideal school.
I think an ideal school would have very small class sizes, like probably 5 students, and teachers that are trained in special education. Even if they're not special education teachers, they should be learning about things like dyslexia, ADHD, because there's so much research that has come out in, say, the last 20 years, but our school system really hasn't changed with that research. So teachers that are educated, teachers that are open-minded and understanding, teachers that know about mental health, and really just the ability to cater to the individualized needs of students.
I agree. Learning has to be personal, right? What is for me, like you have to have that personal connection to what you are learning and also a personal connection with the teacher, right?
Yeah.
Most teachers show up as this, I say sage on the stage, right? I say sage. And how can you relate to someone who is just so perfect, right? I think that doesn't really, really work. And just to wrap this up, and we have lots of people watching this who are actually parents. And in my book, you are a very successful kid, and I'm really proud of you. I can't wait to even see how your life is going to unfold and how the skills that you have developed through Model UN is going to serve you in the future. So I'm sure your parents have done something good, right? I wonder if you can share something as a student with other parents. So what do you think parents need to do to help their children succeed in life, to help them build their characters, to become the best version of who they are? What are some things that you wish parents do more of and parents do less of? So, we can take some notes from you.
Yeah. I mean, I think supporting your child's passion is so important, because as soon as I was like, okay, I'm going to start a Model UN conference, my dad was like, okay, let me help you get a website domain and let me help you do this. And that was so valuable to me to have that support and that guidance. And I think that parents need to put less pressure on kids to go to like Ivy League schools, because I know so many people that are saying, my parents are only paying for college if I get into an Ivy League. And they're crying about this and they're emotionally distressed about this. And parents need to understand that your performance in school is not indicative of your worth as a person or your intelligence, because really it's your ability to conform to a system. It's not your intelligence. So parents need to understand that your school, you don't have to go to a good school to be a successful person, to be a happy person. Parents need to stop trying to live vicariously through their kids. Like, allow your kids to pursue their passions in a way that works for them, I would say.
I love this. I'm going to get this clip because I feel like this is something that every single parent needs to listen, really listen, using their heart, not just like, lip service. Because I talk to so many parents, as what you mentioned, their goal is to send their children to an Ivy League school, academic learning. But I said this so many times on my show. For example, GPA is actually inversely related to innovation. It's a big study. So what does that mean? The higher the GPA, the less likely the kid is to innovate. So do you want your children to be an innovative leader or like a obedient, test taker? And I'm a mom. I definitely don't want that. I want my kid to innovate, to lead. So keep that in mind. And also I mentioned the deciding factor study that just came out a few weeks ago from Adobe. So it's really interesting. So in their study, they asked lots of like school admins when they are interviewing students. So those school admins, they put less emphasis on GPA and the score compared to students. So in students' mind, for them to get into Ivy League school or any school, they think that GPA is SAT 100%. Are the most important factors. But then we will talk to the admins. Oh, those things are actually not that important. So there's like a big gap. I hope people understand that. It is so, so important. So I love what you mentioned. Yeah, great. Yeah. So anything else that you want to share with us, kind of based on what we have discussed so far about education, learning, or Model UN, and share with us? And also, where can people learn more about you, connect with you, social media wise?
So if you want to learn more about my conference, my website is v-imun.com. I am newly on LinkedIn. I have no idea how it works.
I asked her, so are you on LinkedIn? Yeah.
Yeah. My conference's Instagram account is v_imun_official. And you can always send us an email. Our email is linked in our bio, I think. Or send us a DM if you ever have any questions. And I'm pretty sure you can find my Instagram from going onto there because I think I'm tagged in some of the posts. So I would love to see more people at our conference. And if you have questions, you can also send a query on the website as well.
Yeah, so for the conferences, are you only inviting students or like of certain age, or anyone can join?
So students ages 13 through 18 can join.
Okay.
Although we do say that if you're 18 and you're in college or university, we would rather that you didn't come because it's a safeguarding issue for younger students.
Yeah. Awesome. I just I think my muscle hurts from smiling too much. I love it. I wish we had more students like you. And I really hope that parents watching this or listening to this right now can really hear this, the importance of education, holistic education from a student's perspective, especially, the earlier part we're talking about mental health issue, the stress, all those things. That should be a wake-up call for fellow parents and educators. Yeah. So thank you so much, Phil, Mark, Lance, and Michael, everyone for joining us live. And thank you so much, Lily, for a great conversation. And I can't wait to just really stay in touch with you. And thank you so much, everyone. And I hope you will have a great weekend. And I hope to see you next Friday or Saturday, the same time, same location. Bye.
Thank you.